Hey everybody, it's Casual Boops coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be covering Frontline and Steelhunter, and why I do not play either of those games, either of those game modes. You should play them, right? I'm going to talk about why I don't play either one of those game modes, but you should play them to decide on your own whether you like them, because some people like them and some people don't like them, and I'm not crazy about them, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't form your own opinion, right? You can disagree with me, and that's okay. So don't let me in this video decide for you, like, oh, Boops made a video that said these things sucked, maybe I shouldn't even bother. No, you should still play them and see if you like them yourself. And so what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to describe in a very brief manner what the two game modes are. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can then educate yourself, or I'll educate you, I suppose. And then I will talk about the issues that I have with each of the game modes, and then how I would fix those issues, and then why you should play those games, the game modes, right? Aside from the fact that you just should, you know, don't let some idiot on the internet decide for you. You decide. So anyway, so Frontline, if you've been living under a rock for a couple of years, Frontline is it's 30v30, and the maps are huge. There's two maps, and I'm showing the two of them here now. There are two maps right now. Maybe they'll make more of them even, but the gist of it is there are 30 people per map. Sorry, 30 per team, and they're at first evenly distributed, and the long story short is the attackers are attacking and the defenders are defending, and the rules are very similar. You shoot the tanks and go on, and they shoot, you know, the enemy tanks, and there's bases at the center of these zones. You see that the attackers have to capture the base, and then they can move to the next one, and so on and so forth. And the idea being, at the very end, there's 5 of these giant guns, and you shoot the guns, and then that means you win the game. And that's the gist, and the defenders are trying to stop that from happening. It's pretty simple. There's a couple repair spots too, which are kind of interesting and kind of unique, right? You can repair your tank from damage. You can get more ammo if you're out of ammo, which does happen. Lol. And it's tier 8 only, which is nice. So the gist of it here is, like, you can't just skip to zone E, right? In order to get to zone E, you have to have first captured zone B, zone Bravo. And once this is capped, then you can go to zone E if you want. And then once zone is something like, you have to capture one of the zones, the one of ABC. And then once you've done that, you can start assaulting the next one after the one you've captured, right? So if you cap C, now you can go to F if you want to, but you can't just go straight to E unless you've first captured B. It sounds confusing when I'm describing it, but trust me, it makes sense. But the important thing is, once you've captured something in the second area, then it's open the floodgates. You still can't access these, like if let's just say you cap C and F. Now you can get all the way back here and doing the things and killing the guns, but you still can't access zone D and zone E as an attacker, right? The artillery will bomb down. You will die if you go in those zones. So that's the gist of it, and yeah, I guess so that's the game. It's tier 8 only. It's a great way to make money, I guess. So we'll start with, like, why should you play this? Why should you play Frontline? Why do people like it? It is same tier matchmaking, right? If for a certain period of time last year they didn't have that, they stupidly introduced tier 9s. That was very dumb of them. I didn't play that game mode then. I liked it even less then when they did that. So now they've come to their senses, and it's all tier 8s. And the maps are big, right? Each of these squares is about the size of a normal regular map. So it's pretty huge, right? Your engagements are often very long range until you get to the very end, where you get into some of these, you know, cities and stuff like that. So you can grind credits, right? Because it's all tier 8, you can take your premiums and stuff, and you can, if you have two or three premium tanks that are ready to go with crews and stuff, you can't move crews around and stuff while you're in the game mode. It's a little bit confusing. It might take a little bit to get used to, but you can make credits pretty well. And the fewer tanks, like if a tank gets destroyed, there's a certain repair cost, right? Just like in normal games. But so if you run through 6 or 7 different tanks in the course of one game, which could take a half hour or more, then you're going to have to pay the repair cost at the end for each of those. But if you just switch between 2 back and forth, then the maximum repair cost you have to pay is 2 tanks worth of repair costs. So the way to maximize credits is to play the least number of tanks possible, and of course die less, right? The more time you spent shooting and playing and capturing and uncapturing and so on and so forth, the better your performance and the better your credits are going to be. And then also, if you have a crappy tier 8 on the tech tree that you're trying to get through, just, oh my god, grind through it, like the, I don't know, stock Tiger 2. This is a good place to do that. I mean, there's not a good place to ever do that, but this is a better place than random battles. So that's one way to do it. Also fun. It's if you find it fun. Some people find it fun. I don't, for the following reasons. All right. Here are my issues with Frontline. Number 1. Let's see, I've got all this written down in advance here. So if you find yourself out of position, you do a lot of sitting and waiting, which is boring. This is especially common on defense, right? So for example, let's say you're in a position where, and this has happened to me many times because I have played a lot of Frontline. Let's say you're a defender and zone C has been captured, right? So you're going to fall back to zone F and and get ready to defend zone F. And then you wait and you wait and you wait. 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Nothing happens. Nobody's here. Nobody went to zone F. All the attackers went somewhere else, and I'll talk about more of this later. But yeah, so you can be, if you do not read the flow of battle well, or just if you're just unlucky, sometimes it's just unluckiness, and you are on defense, you could be defending an area that no one's trying to attack, and you just sit there for a couple minutes and do nothing, and that's very boring. And there's not an easy fix to this, honestly. I don't really have a fix to this. Okay, number 2. There is nothing stopping. This is the part that kind of goes with the first one. There's something called the blob. I call it the blob. So there's nothing stopping all the defenders. You start on an ABC and they start you out spread out evenly, 10, 10, and 10. There's nothing stopping all the defenders from going to one zone, right? To just piling up on A, for example. But that would be stupid because now you're leaving zone B and C to be capped at will. There's just one tank's going to do it. So defenders kind of have to stay spread out to evenly defend the zones. But the attackers don't have to do that at all. There's nothing stopping attackers from all piling in, especially where it's easier to go from one zone to another. Like you can, on C, for example, it's a little bit tougher to do this from C, but like on C, you could run away from C. Oh my God. And then come back and B, and basically it's easy to clump up, especially later on with the D, E, F area, or it's very easy to go from B to A or from A to B because of this little pass right here. So because of that, it's very common to have what's the blob form, where instead of 10 attackers and 10 defenders, you have maybe 10 defenders, but you have 20 attackers or 25 attackers. I've seen basically the entire game. All of the attackers are in one area and they just steamroll because there's nothing you can do about that. It's the blob, the unstoppable blob. There's nothing stopping that from the blob forming, and they all clump up and they go from one zone to the next. You go from A, you cap A, you go to D, you cap D, you run to E, whatever, you go to B and then you cap B and then you go to E, and that's just the game. And then you've capped all the zones and that's the game. So you're like, as a defender, you are inherently disadvantaged, right? Because you can't blob a defense. You have to defend everywhere at the same time. And so I think one of the ways that you can stop this is to cap a max population per team per zone, right? So for example, like right now, there are mechanisms in place where that if you tried to go from C to F without having captured C first as an attacker, the map would try to blow you up, right? The artillery would come and it would brr, 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 it makes a big noise and it tells you that you get exploded, and you will. I think they need to institute a similar situation where if there's more than, say, 12 attackers in any one zone, then anybody above that number of 12 gets a target on their back saying you got to go back to the zone you were in because you're gonna die, because that otherwise you just get the blob. Everybody blobs in one zone and there's nothing defenders can do, and so you're just screwed. And that also would probably fix number 1, because that means that all the action would have to be spread across all the zones, right? And so you wouldn't spend 4 minutes defending F when there's no one attacking F, because they would have to attack F. They can't go somewhere else. Okay, the last thing is everybody has fucking Arty strikes. There's Arty. Like there's artillery is in the game for some reason. You can play artillery in this game mode if you want. On top of that, there are little reserve things, little things that you can get in your as just by playing the game and playing your tank, as depending on what you pick and so on and so forth. And I'm not getting into the specifics here, but the gists are you have access as a heavy tank to drop an airstrike or drop an artillery strike anywhere in the anywhere in the game, anywhere in the map, anywhere in this entire giant map. So it has, I've done it before because why not? I don't hate the player, hate the game, where I'm like attacking, I'm like defending F and stuff's happening and I have an airstrike, but we've got F pretty well handled. And then I see that D is being captured, the zone D is being captured, and like it's mostly done. Like I know on the cap zone for D where people mostly sit. There's areas that are more powerful because they're more concealed and they're behind cover. So I will usually drop an airstrike on that area across the map when I have it ready. And then if I hit somebody and decap the zone, then I've just gained 2 ranks or whatever. It's just stupid. So the fact that I am allowed to do that, and God forbid you play something slow, then all of a sudden you can tell when everybody's airstrikes and artillery strikes have gotten up, like are ready to use, because all of a sudden it's just like raining on you. It's boom, 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 boom. It's insane. So there's not very many artillery pieces, right? There's not very many actual tanks of artillery, but everybody and their mother has access to artillery anyways, and it is fucking awful. So the solution to that is just remove that garbage. That's my notice. Just remove that garbage. Because it's awful. And why whoever thought that was a good idea? Probably they just took that from like Clan Wars and Strongholds and stuff, and they were like, here's a mechanic that's already in the game, so let's just use it here. It's because it's easy. Well, no, it's stupid. It shouldn't even be in that either. So yes, those are the 3 issues that I have with Frontline. I think if they fix those issues, it would be a lot more fun to play. Also, there's no incentive to win. Actually, this is the third one, or one I didn't write this down, but this I've just come up with off my top of my head, because I'm remembering King. This is for you, buddy. There's no incentive to win, right? And I'm sure if you've played the game mode, you will know what I'm talking about. I think there is an incentive to level up, right? As you do more stuff and shoot more tanks and cap more bases and stuff, you will gain ranks. You want to gain the ranks as high as you can. You want to be a general because you get the most credits and stuff, and you get the most XP if that's what you're going for. But winning doesn't really impact anything, right? So you are incentivized as a defender. If you are really good at defense and they're really bad at offense, you are incentivized if the time's about to run out to just let them cap a zone. Let them take C. It's okay. Fall back, let them take C to draw the game out a little bit. Oh, let them take B next. Like, you are incentivized to let them do these things because it draws the game out and gives people an opportunity to level up more. Because if you just sit there and you guys are really good at defense and you defend your zones, in my opinion, that should mean the defenders should get levels up just for doing the things, because they're obviously doing a great job. But you don't get, like, I've sat there and we've defended A for 10 minutes and you get like 1 rank for doing the things, repelling all the attacks. It just doesn't, they don't incentivize that enough. And so you are incentivized to draw the game out and let it go as long as possible so that you can level up as high as possible. And so the rank is what matters. The rank decides whether you get how much XP you get, how many credits you get. Winning and losing is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And so because of that, I'm sure, again, if you've been on an attacker team, there have been times when I was very new and I was like, oh, we have C and we have F. I'm in a fast tank. I'll zip over here behind enemy lines. I'll start destroying the guns. I'll take out 1, 2, and 3 and we'll win the game. It'll be great. And you see people yelling at you in the chat because they're like, dude, stop killing the guns. We have time to farm. And I've said that too. And once I understood what the actual incentives are for this game, you don't want to kill the guns early. You don't really want to kill the guns at all. You just want to farm tanks to get ranks. And so the incentives are way out of whack. There should be an incentive to win, right? As a defender, if you guys are doing a really great job and you keep them at A, B, and C, you should get some giant bonus because you guys have done such a good job. You know, like I don't know. There needs to be a restructuring of the goals and incentives of this game mode entirely, because it's not good right now. And so that's why you have some people trying, like, not everybody's trying to do the same thing. Some people are trying to win because they think that matters, and some people are just trying to farm because that's what actually matters. So if you had the goals aligned in a way that everybody was working toward the same thing, because there's only one that's like winning matters, or for example, then we all need to win. So how do we win? Let's do that. Like, this is what needs to happen. So okay, I'm adding this in post-production also because I've realized after the fact that I forgot to talk about one thing. One thing that is very, very annoying is tempo is crucial, right? In Frontline, tempo is amazing. Tempo is, you need to watch your tempo. And what does that mean? You can have a maximum of 2 reserve vehicles, right? Spares. After you die, you have an extra life. You can have a maximum of 2 extra lives, and and they take a certain amount of time to build up, right? So you can't just, you know, if you never die, you're not going to have 7 of them at the end of the game. On the other end of it, if your tempo is wrong, like there's a certain time, there are times when it's worth it to run in there and get a couple of shots in and maybe reset the base from being captured, even if you die, right? And that's tempo, right? But if you don't have any spare tanks, then it's not worth it to do that because of what I'm about to describe. So like that, because that, if you don't have any reserve tanks and you die, you get to float around the map in the sky and watch everybody play the game. And this is awful, right? So like, I know some people used to just like close the game. They would just like Alt F4, I guess I'll go do something else. But there have been situations where I've been in where, let's say you're playing with a group of friends, you're in a platoon of 3, and you have messed up, and so now you are floating around the map, and you don't want to leave because you're playing with your friends, but also this is very boring because you don't get to play the game for another 5 minutes until your tank comes back. And then the entire rest of the game you have to play very conservatively because you have to wait for your next tank reserves to come back before you die again, right? Or you're in the same position. So this is awful. This is awful game design, right? The fact that you get punished by not being able to play the game is a stupid game design. So what they need to do is everything is the same, right? As far, I like the idea of you have maximum of 2 and it takes a certain amount of time and so on. That's all fine. The issue is, if you don't have any tanks in reserve, you should be able to choose between floating around the map like you can now, or you pay some credits to bypass, skip the line, and bring out another tank right away. I don't know what that number is. Is it 100,000 credits? Is it 200,000 credits? I don't know. Something that is financially not incentive, like it will not be it won't be profitable for you to do this, especially not on a regular basis. Most people play Frontline to make credits, so if you're spending a bunch of credits to play the game, it's not going to be worth it to do it all the time. But this would keep you from the feels bad moment of like, oh, well, all my friends are playing, so I don't want to leave the game, but also I get to just sit here and not play for 5 minutes. So instead of that, now you can pay 100,000 credits, and you're maybe not going to make as much money on this match as you otherwise would, but at least you get to play the game, right? So this is what needs to happen. This one is serious, because this was like, I couldn't believe that this is the game that they chose to do. Like, yeah, so you need to give a possible way to bypass the cooldown by paying credits. That's a big one. And I went back. This is a second recording session just to add that in. So there we go. On to the next. Okay, so now Steel Hunt. Talking about Steel Hunt. What is Steel Hunter? Steel Hunter, not Steel Hunt. Steel Hunter is essentially Wargaming's take on a battle royale. It's like, if you've ever heard of PUBG, or a lot of other shooter games are starting to do battle royale game modes, where it's, you know, you and maybe your squad, you by yourself, or maybe a different game where it's like a group of 2 or 3, and it's your team versus everybody else. And that's what this game is. And then slowly there's like supply drops around, things you can collect to level up and increase your power level. And then also the map is slowly coming in, so that you are eventually forced to have a confrontation with the remaining players in the game, leading to, at the very end, there's one little tiny square. I mean, this, you can't see it right now, but because of this map is divided into grids, and the grid squares slowly close in to the point where there's a certain spot where there's only one square open, and so you are basically pinned, you must fight the last tank, or else, you know, that there is always one winner, right? So it's a not a grand battle, it's a battle royale. And like, why would you play this? It is something totally different. This is not like anything else in the game right now. It's kind of interesting. It's novel, right? And you don't use your own tanks, right? And there's a whole different. You should read the articles, and you should play the game to see what you think of it. But there are different tanks that are not like anything like what's in the. Oh yeah, see, here we go. The little the zones come in on you. You can the yellow is about to close. The red means you're going to take damage. Anyways, there are tanks in here that you can play that they give you. You don't need to have your own tanks, and they're very different from the tech tree tanks. So that's kind of interesting. It's interesting. You can play some interesting stuff. And also, the last but not least, because it's fun. Again, because you like it and it's fun. And they do make it so that you can make some credits, right? Not quite enough, I don't think, right? Like I play random battles more because there's not strong enough incentive. I need a little more of a carrot on the stick because, and I've described this to other folks at Wargaming, like the main game is sort of like the main quest. Everybody's got battle pass to grind. They've gotten there are battle pass points you get for this now, so that's a big improvement. You got battle pass points, you're trying to grind tanks, you're trying to grind crew, you're trying to grind credits. Those are the main quest. And so everything that distracts from that is a side quest. And so if the side quest goals, if what you get for doing the side quest helps the main quest, then okay, you'll try it out. But if it doesn't, now it's something I've got to make time for, or I've got to stop the main quest for the side quest, so the incentives had better be good. And in my opinion, the Steelhunter incentives are not that great. So I don't really enjoy it that much, so I don't find myself playing it. But there are people that like it and love it, and so they good. You person watching this should play the game and decide whether you like it or not. But that's the general gist of the game. And so my issues with the game, my 3 issues with the game are as follows, and how to fix them. I have solutions for each of these. Number 1, many of the tanks that you play as have heat, high explosive anti-tank rounds as the standard rounds. Which doesn't sound like a big deal unless you've played the IKV, the little tier 5 Swedish tank destroyer on the tech tree, has heat rounds for standard rounds, and it's really fucking annoying. I'm sure if you've played it, you know, because there's spaced armor all over the place. If you hit tracks, you don't go in. If you hit spaced armor, it doesn't go in. Well, that would be bad enough as it is, except for a lot of the tanks that they give you in these game modes have random, it's like post-apocalyptic kind of Mad Max style, where there's like crap attached to the sides, and a lot of that stuff counts as spaced armor. So you take your standard heat round and then you attach spaced armor to everything, and all of a sudden you can't pen. There have been times where I should have won a 1v1, and then because my round went into some bullshit spaced armor, I just lost that 1v1 and died, and it just felt really bad. Like, they need to. So my fix, like, it makes it contribute to more of the RNG in the game mode, and there is a lot, and I'll describe more of. Yeah, actually, everything I'm about to talk about that I have with this is almost everything is RNG related. So this is one of those things where you don't even feel like. I hesitate to take 1v1 fights because even though I should win them, I might get screwed and not win them. So there's so much RNG in the game mode because of the heat shells and other things. I think they need to fix that. The fix for it would be just make AP rounds standard. Standard rounds are AP rounds. That's not complicated. That's how it is mostly in the regular game. Don't talk about historical accuracy. Nothing about this is historically accurate or historical relevancy at all. Just make it AP rounds. Problem solved. Boom. Okay. Number 2. In the game mode, so a little background here. In the game mode, when you log into a game, there are a few different maps, by the way. There's 3 maps. This is the newest one that I haven't actually played this one yet. But the gist of it is there are potential drop zones, right? There's little dots all over the map, and you can pick the one that you want to drop in. You can pick where you want to drop. So it's kind of nice because you can decide if there's a certain area of the map that you know the best or you like the best that you can drop there. So the drawback here, the problem that I have, number 2, is when I drop in, I have no idea how close I am to other tanks. It has happened to me where I've dropped in this little spot right here, and there's been a tank there and a tank there and a tank there. And I'm like, right off the bat, in the first 5 seconds, I'm in like a 4v4, no, it's like a 1v1v1v1. Like there's 4 tanks all shooting each other, and I didn't want to be part of this, and I didn't want this. I wanted to run away, and then I tried to run away, and there was a tank over there too. I can't tell where the hell anybody is. And PUBG in a lot of those places will solve this problem, because when you drop in off the plane or whatever, you can see where the enemy, you can see if there's people floating around you going to the same place, and you can choose to kind of you know, abort the mission, not drop in the same spot as them, because getting in a firefight in the first 5 seconds of the game is really sketchy. So what I want them to do, yeah, so this is annoying because of RNG, because of where the game has decided to spawn everybody, or where people have decided to pick, and you can't decide where you pick relative to somebody else. You might just be unlucky and spawn right very near a bunch of other tanks. And this is RNG bullshit, right? So here's what happens. They need to give a radio ping, and in the game you can periodically, you have a little radar ping where it'll tell you where everybody is in a split second, in a little snapshot of where everybody is, a little dot on the map within a certain radius. But then the trade-off is that they see where you are, right? So you can see them, but they can also see you, just like radar. So what they need to do is they need to have a radio ping for everybody immediately on the start of the map. Like as soon as you load in, the first thing that happens is a radio ping. Because otherwise, like the timer starts and it takes like 30 seconds for everybody's radio to charge up, and then that first 30 seconds everybody pings because they're trying to figure out the same thing. Well, just do that when the game first starts, so that way you know, oh god, there's 4 people over there, I should run that way, so that I can, because I'm a Frenchie and I don't want to get in a fight in the first 5 seconds, because I will definitely lose that fight. So that's number 2. That's what needs to happen. Okay, number three is and a little background here. So when you shoot tanks and do things and capture and pick up things, you get XP, and you can use that XP to upgrade your tank, and it can be firepower or armor or blah 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 blah. And there is a certain amount of cooldown that is required. Like if you are if somebody shoots you, there's like, I don't know how long it is, maybe 5 seconds, 5-second cooldown between when you got shot and when you can upgrade your tank, right? My problem is that time is not long enough, and there have been times where I have been in a fight and we're shooting each other, and in the process of shooting each other, right, we're gaining XP, and that the person I'm fighting has like scooted around a corner, and then just that amount of time that took me to get around the corner and chase them and to finish the fight, that allowed them to bypass that cooldown, and then they upgraded. And then if you upgrade your hull, you go from whatever hit points you were on to whatever new, you basically refill your HP to a new higher level than it was originally. So basically what happens is, I've been in situations where I'm in a firefight and I'm going to win, but the guy bails for like 5 seconds, and then I come around the corner and he's even strong, he's full hit points, and he's even stronger than he was before, and so now I'm just screwed. Now I just lose because this guy got a chance to upgrade, and I'm totally screwed. That's bullshit. That feels bad, right? Like, you know, I went from winning this to, because he could stall for like 5 seconds, now I'm dead. And this was a really fun game, guys. And by this time, maybe I'm 10 minutes into the game and I've just wasted all this time. So that feels bad. And the solution, of course, is to make the cooldown longer between when a fight happens and when you're allowed to upgrade. And I think also, like, when you upgrade the hull, you probably shouldn't get more hit points, right? If you're on 33% of your hit points and you upgrade the hull to a more beefy, well-armored thing with more hit points, you should stay at 33%, I think. You know what I mean? Not full hit points of the new highest. Like, maybe you have 1,000 hit points and then you upgrade to a hull that has 2,000 hit points. You shouldn't be topped off to 2,000 hit points. You should stay at 33, whatever hit percentage you were at when you upgrade, right? And maybe there's one of the upgrades that you can get that drop on the map that is one of those that will heal you, right? You can gain hit points back that way. That would help from being cheesed, because I feel like I'd be cheesed, you know? Somebody's like, it just feels bad, right? So anyways, those are my issues. These are the reasons why you will probably never see me make content aside from this video about Frontline or Steelhunter, because I find them very frustrating. And there are ways they could fix that and make it less frustrating. And until they do that, I just don't. I know people like it. I just don't find it worth my time, you know, to play them. And I just don't have as good of a time. Right? I have more fun playing random battles. Somehow, I don't understand. That is it. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.